Despite the rebuilds, the team suspect that the best place to find an original wall is where the cobbled road leading up to the mill stops. So Trench 3 is put in at the edge of the car park. The rise of steam-driven machinery changed Britain forever. Huge numbers of people flooded into the cities where factories provided work. But such immigration brought about terrible living conditions. One observer of living and working conditions in industrial Manchester was Frederick Engels. Together with Karl Marx, he started a worldwide political movement, communism. Marx and Engels discussed their ideas just down the road from our mill at Chetham's Library. This is a really eerie moment for me because we're sitting in exactly the same alcove that Karl Marx used to sit in when he came up to Manchester to visit his old mate Frederick Engels. What do you think they used to talk about in this alcove?
Well, I suppose they were setting the world to rights, but unlike anybody else who might sit here and say how things ought to be, their ideas actually had some practical effect in the world.
And Engels himself actually did a lot of research on the working class in Manchester.
Yes, he wrote this book here. This is a photocopy of a bit of it, The Condition of the Working Class in England. And what he says almost make you weep. Look here, it says, a whole family is often accommodated on a single bed, he says about the conditions they were living in, and sometimes a heap of filthy straw and covering of old sacking hide them in one undistinguished heap. It's just terrible. It goes on to say, often more than one family lived in a damp cellar, containing only one room, in whose pestilential atmosphere from 12 to 16 persons were crowded. It's just horrific, isn't it?
And even though it was written over 150 years ago, it's still quite touched you, isn't it?
It has. It's just so horrible that it makes you want to find out more, to find out how people could actually exist in a world like that.
Do you want to hold it on the fence for me, Helen? Just hold it on that fence.
At the top end of the car park, Helen starts her investigation into the living conditions described by Engels. As day one nears an end, we're still not sure if Phil's walls are arc-right, but Mike's confident of the date of the wall in Trench 3. Well, we stopped digging and starting the recording. What's happened here?
Well, what we've got here, Tony, is we've got the end of the mill. We've got the cobbles here,
yeah,
and then we've got a line of bricks. They're a bit bashed about by a couple of holes which have been bashed through in the mid-20th century, but either side we have brick walling. You see there's got 2 rows of bricks here, and then a row of bricks and some stone sets over here, and we think that's the doorway into the mill.
You say it's the doorway into the mill, but earlier you said to me there were lots of mills at different times.
There are lots of mills. Now, we're pretty certain this is Arkwright's 1781 to 82 mill.
Why?
This is a brick from 1854. It's very sharp, it's wire cut, and it's quite chunky, very nicely made. However, that is a brick from this wall. Much, much more irregular. It's made in a wooden mould. It's a slightly smaller size, and it's far more irregular. And this was made in Manchester between 1780 and 1820. This is the brick from Arkwright's first mill.
I bet you're glad you found that.
Absolutely delighted.
So, Matt, what are we going to do with this trench now?
Well, that's it really, Tony. It's job done here, but we have got a bonus in that when we got to the end of the trench, we've got this huge stone column base here, and if you look closely you can see the circle there where the cast iron flange would have been at the bottom of the column, and these would have run all the way down the centre of the mill there.
So presumably that's proof positive that we're right inside the factory?
Absolutely.
Hello, my name's John Gator. Time Team is fan funded by Patreon. This vital support helps us to make new episodes. Joining Patreon gives you access to exclusive interviews, 3D models and masterclasses, plus lots more.